Welcome back, subscribers. This is Johnny Hopper. Before I start talking about MXGP, I want to thank everybody that has donated some money to my sponsorship fund. It's going to make some rider be able to get to a couple nationals, maybe even some supercrosses. Who knows what they decide to do with it. But I really appreciate everyone that's been voting and everyone that has actually donated their own money to sponsor a guy. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I'm almost to the $1,000, so I'll announce the winner as soon as I get to $1,000. But moving on to Germany, this is personally one of my favorite tracks to watch. It's got some really cool elevation changes. The terrain is hard packed, so it reminds me a lot of what my local national is here at Lakewood, Colorado, because they rip it real deep in practice and qualifying, and then it gets real hard packed, real deep ruts, a lot of different lines, and real choppy bumps. So the suspension, you want to be fairly soft because of these bumps, but because of how fast this Germany track is, these guys probably want to be a little bit stiff too. So they probably want the rebound to be faster because of the bumps, but they want to be stiffer because of the speed. And I really like the elevation changes because of the fact that you get to see these guys scrub off some of these big, singles. I thought it was really cool. But moving on to qualifying, I really like how the GPs qualify on Saturday, and they have a couple times. They're on the track 3 times on Saturday between a free practice, then a time practice, and then their actually qualifying session. So they start off their day with free practice at noon, so they get 25 minutes, and Tim Gajser was actually the fastest with a 149.4, and this was in his last lap. Well, actually, it was his second to last lap. His total laps was 11, and his fast lap was on lap 10. Tonus was about a second off, and his was in lap 9, which was his last lap. And so you can just see these guys, how good they are, that after one session of 25 minutes on the track, they pretty much are going as fast as they are going to all day. Because in time practice, which is right around 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock for these guys, Tim Gajser again was faster, but he ended up going a second faster with a 148, and this was in his second to last lap again. And then Tonus was much closer with a 148.1, and this was on his second to last lap as well. So then after that, then they get ready at about 5 o'clock to start doing qualifying for the motos, and Tim Gajser won. So he's had so far a perfect day on Saturday, and his fastest lap was a 152.8 during the race. So they probably didn't do a whole lot of track prep. The track was probably getting a little bit gnarlier. Seewer was second with a 153.9, and he was 6 seconds behind Tim Gajser. And Tonus, who qualified second as far as laps, he was 14th. He must have gone down in qualifying. Something must have happened to him. But then moving on to the motos. Which is on Sunday. Their first moto starts at 2 p.m. in the afternoon on Sunday. And Tim Gajser continues his perfect weekend with getting the whole shot. He just checked out. He was about 7-8 seconds out front. He ends up tipping over, and Seewer, who was in second, is already committed to the same inside line as him and didn't know that his bike was still in the ruts. So when he went to turn, he ended up just kind of tipping over, which sucked. But Gajser was able to pick his bike back up and continue to win. About halfway through the moto, Lieber ends up just T-bowing and just moves him out of the way. And he took over second. And right after the finish line, there's a real fast uphill, which I think is the coolest part of the track. But he ended up crashing there. And you start braking because you're getting ready to scrub. Maybe he got high-sided in a high-speed wobble, and it just smacked him into the ground. But he wasn't able to continue racing. He wasn't able to pick the bike back up. I don't know what his state is as far as if he's injured, but he wasn't able to race moto number 2. And Seewer, on the last lap, does a Johnny Hopper maneuver where he's all wobbling in between, dabbing his feet down in between the ruts, and ends up Tonus getting around him, and Tonus ends up finishing second. He ends up finishing third, which always when something happens on the last lap, because it's so mental. Who knows if he was thinking, I got one more lap to do, don't fall, don't fall, don't fall, because I know every time I've done that, I end up actually falling, because you actually want to change your mindset and say, hey, this is the last lap. I'm in second place. I'm going to finish strong. I'm going to finish strong. You want to have a positive affirmation, positive reinforcement than something negative where I hope I don't crash. One more lap. Don't crash, don't crash, don't crash. Because unconsciously, your body ends up kind of doing what your mind tells you to. And it's the same thing when you're learning a new jump. If you watch some of my tutorials, I go a little bit more in detail on the mental aspect of that sort of thing. It's a technique, and you need to be good at it. And these pros are probably good at it. Perhaps that might have happened to Seewer, who knows. And moving on to moto number 2. So Gajser continues his perfect weekend, gets the whole shot. Febra gets a bad start, gets pinched off, and looks like some guy comes in and takes out his front wheel, and he ends up going down, which sucks because when you start 33rd, you got 32 other riders you got to pass to win the race. Your chances of finishing well are considerably lower when you fall down on lap 1, especially on the start. And Seewer decides to take his teammates' idea as far as let's make stuff hard on us. On the second corner, he ends up going down in 3rd. Just looks like he might have just dabbed his foot again and just took him down, which I was impressed with how hard he rode too, because by the time he got up to around 8th or so inside the top 10, he ended up tipping over again. I don't know if he just liked the smell of the dirt or what it was, but he ended up, I believe, 8th in that moto. Who I was really impressed with was Tonus, because he finished 10th in Moto 1. He was the top Husky. Shout out to the Husky boys. But in Moto 2, he was actually 2nd, and pretty much nobody could catch Gajser this moto. He had a perfect weekend. I believe this was his 5th straight moto win in a row. Tonus was 2nd. Tonus was 3rd. Seewer, yeah, he did finish 8th. And Febra actually made it all the way up to 12th from last place, so good for him. So coming to the overall, we had Gajser obviously out front with a perfect 50 points. Then you had Tonus with a 2-3 with 42 points. Then you had Paulin with a 5th, 4th for 3rd. Tonus with a 10-3 and 33 points. He was 4th. And Seewer was 5th with a 3rd and an 8th. And Febra was 8th with a 4 and a 12. It's pretty much looking like Gajser's championship to lose, because it sucks that Caroli is out. He's still 2nd in points, and I really wanted to see him win 10 World GPs to tie Stefan Everts, but we'll see if that happens next year. These guys are riding really, really good, and I can't believe that these guys, just like Carmichael, can basically be the guy to beat for a decade. That is just unbelievable to me. I would like to see him come back and win another one, but we'll see. There's a lot of really, really fast guys. Hurlings, you know, he was out because of his ankle, but I can't wait for the MX of Nations to see how fast these guys are. I am going to be rooting for the Americans, but I don't think the Americans, I'm just going to say it, I think it's going to be hard for the Americans to be on the podium this year in Motocross of Nations. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Until next time, this is Johnny Hopper. Bro.